it's Ash from Super Videos, back for another video for Season 9 of The Walking Dead. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at how should Rick die. So, at this point, it's very likely that we will have Rick Grimes' death in Season 9, since it will be Andrew Lincoln's last season, as he confirmed during a panel at Comic-Con. So, it's coming. Now, I wanted to share my thoughts and my opinions about this and basically say how I think or how I want Rick to go, or one of the ways in which I think it will be great for Rick to go. A banger of an exit for him as a character. Now, I was actually thinking about this the other day and I just had to share my opinions with you guys. So in order to do it justice and actually be able to explain exactly what I was thinking, I will kind of play it as a scenario for you guys. I will basically say how it will come about. Now, before I actually get into this video will contain comic spoilers because I will be taking stuff from the comics and talking about them. It's very spoilery as well, so if you're not a comic reader, I don't think it's a good idea for you to watch the rest of this video because it will spoil some things from the comics for you that we will potentially see or most likely see in Season 9. So with that spoiler warning out of the way, let's get into this. So the idea that I have actually starts with them in the woods. So they're in the woods. Rick and other survivors are actually surrounded by a herd of walkers, and there are whispers camouflaged in the herd of walkers. So it's basically the same scenario as we see in the comics as well. There are a lot of walkers, but there are also a handful of whisperers among them as well. And then we can have a moment where Rick notices that some bodies on the ground of the survivors, we don't have to know all of them, just random survivors, they have stab wounds. So they are not bite wounds. That means that there is a person with a sharp knife or a sharp weapon killing them. During the chaos, obviously Rick is going to be disoriented, he's going to be confused about what's going on, but by the time he realizes that there's a threat, the threat of the whispers among the walkers, a whisper actually stabs Rick. Rick falls to the ground, and then we can have it so that before the walkers get to Rick, Daryl shows up just in time to save him and kills the whisperer, kills the walkers, and saves
try to
Rick.
find an
and then we
exit
can
out
have
of the
Daryl
herd
throw
as
Rick
he's
on his
killing
shoulders,
the
walkers with one hand. And then we can have a moment where Daryl has a very close call. We can have like a walker buried on top of a body, and then as Daryl is basically walking, killing the walkers, the zombie that's on the ground is very close to biting Daryl. And then we can have Rick, who's on Daryl's shoulders and obviously leaning towards the other side, sees this, and during the conscious unconscious phase that he's in, he grabs his axe and chops the head of the walker, kills the walker, and saves Daryl, just like he saved him. So it kind of comes full circle that way as well. And then we can show Michonne, who's very shocked about what's happened. You know, she's confused. She can't believe that Rick was just stabbed or whatever. And maybe she comes to her senses and follows Daryl and Rick, starts killing the walkers with her katana and clears the way, creates an exit for them. And then we can have Daryl and Michonne trying to get Rick back to Alexandria so that they can get him to the infirmary so that they can treat the wound. But maybe we can have a moment where there's a lot of walkers on the way back as well, so they have to put Rick next to a tree, leave him, and go fight the walkers and kill the walkers. And then we can have something like Rick is leaning on a tree trunk and he's bleeding immensely. He closes his eyes and he begins thinking about the past. And we can have even like flashbacks of things that he sees. And then he opens his eyes and then he sees Shane right in front of him. And just putting it out there, that could possibly be what they're doing with Shane anyway. But Shane could be walking towards him. And we can even have like a conversation between Rick and Shane. Obviously, this is Rick's hallucination, but we can have like a conversation. And then maybe through that conversation, if they want to, they can do a big reveal about Shane and Rick's relationship, if they really wanted to. But then they can have it so that when the hallucination stops, Shane actually morphs into a walker who is standing right in front of Rick and is about to bite him. And of course, that could connect to the scene that we see in the trailer where Rick is sweating, he's leaning next to a tree, and there's a walker right in front of his face. So we could potentially also see that as well. But we can have it so that right before the walker is able to bite Rick, we see an arrow go through the walker's head. And we can have even the same kind of angle that we see in the trailer. And then the arrow goes right through the head, the walker falls, and then we get a reveal that Daryl is standing in the back and he's the one that shot the walker in the head and saved Rick. They clear the way, they get back to Alexandria, and we get a big reveal that maybe Rick is not just stabbed, maybe he was also bitten as well. Now, I know some people are going to say a random walker is going to bite Rick. That's going to be underwhelming. But think about it. Rick is stabbed. There's a lot of things going on. He doesn't know what to think. There is whispers among the walkers. So it's possible that he's not going to be in full Rick mode. The walker might as well have gotten to him in that phase where everything is going down. And then we can have a very emotional scene where Rick is on his deathbed. He gives a speech to everyone, and then at this part of the story we can actually give Andrea's comic storyline to Rick in a remixed way. So instead of Andrea, it'll be Rick in the show, which does kind of make sense as well. Even if they don't follow the same story up to this point, from what I said, they could still have this part where they give Andrea's comic storyline in terms of her dying and everything to Rick. And we can even have Michonne going forward inherit Rick's future comic story in terms of trying to get over the loss of their significant other. So in the comics, Rick is trying to get over Andrea's death. In the show, we could give that to Michonne. So Michonne is trying to get over Rick's death. And then we can have scenes just like the comics where every person enters the room, they say their goodbye to Rick. We can even have Negan show up and say his goodbyes to Rick. So basically, we will be bringing that part of the story where Andrea dies from the comics in way earlier and giving it to Rick. That's basically what it's gonna be. And then afterwards, when everything is said and done, we can have Negan's storyline be the same as it is in the comics. In terms of him escaping the jail, going after Alpha, the leader of the Whisperers, and bringing back her head to Rick. And that all stays almost the same. The difference would be that Negan actually goes out on a mission for avenging the death of Rick. And then he could bring Alpha's head back to Michonne. So in the comics, it was Rick, and in the show, we can have that be Michonne. And that would potentially be the beginning of Negan's redemption story arc. And then also, Rick's death could be a big part of Daryl's character development into becoming a character that can actually lead. So Daryl, to honor his close friend, and also since he was not on good terms with Rick during the last couple of months that he was alive, Daryl could basically decide to follow Rick's legacy and lead the way, just like Rick wanted to. That would mean that he would let Negan stay alive, which means that that would be the end of the inner struggle of wanting to kill Negan, not wanting to kill Negan, and being against not killing Negan. We could basically have Daryl do exactly what Rick wanted to, not kill Negan, bring the communities together once again, and basically reunite them and make them bond together for the greater good to fight against this big threat that's facing them. And then we could also have Michonne still have her comic storyline in terms of leaving and going away, but it'll be a remixed version. So basically, to cope with Rick's loss, she can leave for a little bit and then come back, just like the comics. So it could also work for Michonne's story in those regards as well. And just to add to it, later on, or even right now in this season itself, when the Saviors are becoming a threat, they are a problem, and things are going down, we could have Negan get him back in line. We could have the same thing as the comics, but it'll be a bit remixed. We could have Negan tell them that that lifestyle is over. They need to work together for the greater good. They can't just be all for themselves. It can't be the way it was. And then we can have a very powerful scene where, in response to the Savior saying, "We are Negan," Negan says, "You should not be Negan from now on. From now on, we are all Rick." That would be pretty powerful and very interesting coming from Negan. And for the greater good, for the greater threat, they could unite together, the saviors and the survivors, to defeat this big threat who are the Whisperers. So that's basically my thoughts about this. I've been thinking a lot about it, but just recently, last couple days, I was able to put together my thoughts and put together this kind of storyline that would be great for Rick's death and his story arc in terms of what his death means going forward. But I want to know everybody's opinions about this. I don't know how long this video is going to be. It's probably going to be a bit longer than I wanted it to, but what do you think about Rick dying the way I just said? That's it for this video. See you next time for another super video. If you like what you see, press like, subscribe for more content, and press the bell button to receive notifications for future uploads. Like the Facebook page of this channel to join our Walking Dead community. Join us live every Friday night at 6 p.m. Mountain Time for a Q&A session. See you all there.